Welcome to the Nightbird Radio Podcast. I'm Timothy Saylor, and I'm going to be your host this evening as we sound out the subconscious, navigate the nocturnal, and explore the farthest reaches of our experience. Coming at you from the back of an 86 Dodge Ram van on the rolling foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in the Great Forest, deep in the heart of the Kali Yuga. This is radio for the hauntological turn. This episode of the Nightbird Radio Podcast was brought to you by Gary Noriyuki, who sent me the amazing Magos Key amulet that we talked about on the last episode. This thing is fantastic. It and other amazing items are available at Gary's Etsy page, Manticore's Den Conjure. And that's all I ask. If you find value in this show, find something of equal value to the value that you get from this show and return the favor. That's what value for value is all about. It could be money, but it can also be other things. As you've noticed in these intros, I've gotten a lot of value from y'all in the form of services. Matt Boisvert gave me an amazing biofield tuning session that was mind-blowing. Mel Priestley, who's today's guest, she gave me an astrology reading. There are many ways to return the value that you get from this podcast. I know times are tough right now, but if you're looking to give back to this show, email me at tim@nightbirdpodcast.com. Visit nightbirdpodcast.com and navigate to the support the show page. And, another great way to support the show is to come on the show and share your story. So I would love to have that as well. Again, email me at tim@nightbirdpodcast.com. Mel Priestley's been on this show a bunch of times. I'm not going to waste a bunch of time in the introduction. Let's get right to the conversation. Mel Priestley, welcome back to the Nightbird Radio Podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, Tim, I am doing great.
I'm glad to hear it. So we were just talking before we hit record about, it was the last time you were on. We did the forecast for this year in December, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted, now that we're in the thick of all that, of the really heavy astrology for the year, I wanted to have you back on to both kind of go over what's happened since and also, to look forward and at what's coming. So let's go back and first talk about what's happened since we last talked.
Yeah. How about those spy balloons, eh?
Yeah. Right.
I did not have that on my 2023 bingo card. I have a few other things, though, that I have high hopes might show up later this year, but we'll see.
You didn't have Operation Bluebeam?
Well, kind of. Like, it's tied in, actually. The other day, my husband said on his 2023 bingo card is finding human DNA on Mars. Maybe it'll be the moon. There's lots of stuff going on with the moon right now we'll talk about. But yeah, I mean, if you think about the last 3 months, I guess, right? A fair bit has happened, but maybe not, but also not that much. I don't know. It's so hard to parse out the news these days. But I think we literally are in the thick of it right now, right? It's like, so the biggest thing that just happened was Saturn just went into Pisces. Yay. Honestly, that is a huge celebration for me personally. And I think for the world, because he's not in his own signs anymore. He lost his ability to be Saturn in all of his own glory, which is a real drag and has been a drag for like the last over 5 years. So I personally have noticed a bit of it's just kind of like the pressure is off. I don't know if you've noticed anything. It has only been a few days, honestly. It was just earlier this week.
I feel like the Death Star has been fully operational and it just blew up.
Nice. Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen there's a lot of, we could go into this because it's what's happening right now. There's a lot of things coming out, a lot of shifting going on. And I guess, we'll see more of that as we hit into some of these more of these transits that are coming this year. But yeah, I feel an energy shift. I did, and a lot happened for me personally. Just like a lot of like, just sort of like a muzzle was taken off or something.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, the oppression that I have felt over the last couple of years has lifted. And so I mean, even when I have crappy days like yesterday, I was feeling real crappy, but it just wasn't as bad as the crappy days over the last couple of years, especially, you know?
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like for me, and this obviously is just my experience, but this stuff always seems to line up with the stars, so it only makes sense. Um, in the past couple of weeks, I've just been experiencing like very rapid growth, and it's just been kind of a revelatory time for me, um, in certain areas, and so it's just interesting. You have to wonder, like, hmm,
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think the rest of March is going to be pretty interesting. March into April, and I had my eye on that when we were, talking back in December because it's where the main action of the year falls astrologically. So we got Saturn into Pisces, and then in a couple weeks we get just within a couple days of them, it's Pluto into Aquarius for his sneak preview, and then Mars into Cancer, which concludes his big long 6 month journey through Gemini, and gets him out of there. I'm not like excited about Mars in Cancer just on its own because it's not a sign that he's great in, but it ends the Mars Gemini stuff, which I think will help the Mercury issues. Ooh, is that something you've noticed recently? Because I have to say, so Mercury's in Pisces right now, where like he's like quite afflicted, and Mars is still in Gemini, which, so monkeying in Mercury's sign, which is going to kind of just exacerbate Mercury issues. But man, what that ingress into Mercury into Pisces, it's been like a Mercury retrograde, like, or worse sometimes. Like it's
When
like
did that
hallmarks.
happen? When was the
A
ingress?
couple weeks ago. Let me look.
Yeah.
Of course, got me on the spot. I don't remember the exact date it
No,
was
you're
now.
good.
But yeah, it was just a week and a half ish ago. So yeah.
That makes sense to me. I've just been
Mm,
so like I'll just go ahead and talk about this. It's personal stuff, and I'm
sure.
usually not like you know. Well, who am I kidding? I tell everything on this. Um, I left the job I was at, and I hadn't been
Mm,
there for that long. I'd been there maybe like a couple, not even 2 months. Um, and this was the exact day that Saturn went into Pisces, which is my 10th
right.
house.
Yep.
Um,
A little on the nose there.
little on the nose, right? But it was kind of one of these situations where I took this job and it's just a part-time deal at a cafe, and like um it just seemed like this condensation of every difficulty I've ever had working in kitchens was all kind of piled onto this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe not all of them, because like luckily, you know what I mean, because there's a lot of problems I've had in kitchens that were like way worse. But in terms of like just the people I was working with, it was just kind of like a perfect storm. And I just kind of realized like, yeah, this isn't where I'm at anymore. Like this is not what I'm doing now. Like this is not like I had to do it again to see that it wasn't for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm on to other things now. Like, okay, thank you for showing me. Awesome. Got the message. And I didn't blow up or anything. I just said, look, I'm not interested. I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm going another direction.
Cool.
And like, see you later. Um, which I feel like in this situation, I got to be Saturn
Yeah.
because I drew a boundary. Like,
Yep.
so what I've been kind of, and this is maybe a tangent, but I think it does apply. Like, what I've kind of been going through lately is, I've been drawing. I don't like even like the word boundary sometimes. I make choices, but they do sometimes constitute a boundary. Like, or like, this is where I'm telling the universe what I want and what experience I want to have by making certain choices. And like, I feel like the I used to think that the things I did when no one was watching didn't matter, when I was
Mm-hmm.
really embroiled in materialism. But now I've come to find that actually the less people are watching, the more it matters, because that's a conversation that's occurring between me and the universe,
Mm-hmm.
and between me and the spirit of the universe, or whatever you want to call that. Um, and so I drew a line. Like, this is the line that I'm not gonna fuck with. Like, this is where I stand. And and so I was able to enforce that. And that's happened in a lot of areas. And I feel like that's very Saturn. So can you speak to
Mm-hmm.
that a little bit?
Yep. Saturn is all about boundaries and lines and delineating those things. So it's gonna get trickier in some respects with him going into Pisces, because Pisces is the sign that dissolves boundaries. Like it is mutable water. So it is like the wateriest of water, where everything just kind of flows and dissolves, and yeah. But the thing about Saturn and Pisces, so he doesn't have any like essential dignity, except in one system he does rule the first decan of Pisces. So for the next year, Saturn's going to be in that first decan, where he does rule that decan. So the way that I'm kind of visualizing this is picturing Pisces as a vast ocean. I mean, that's pretty standard, right? So, but the first decan is like the beach, the like crossing the threshold from land to water. And it makes sense to me that Saturn rules that, because that is a boundary between land and ocean. But it is not a hard, fast boundary. Like, it changes all the time. The tide comes in and it goes out. So you can't, you can't draw a line down a beach and be like, this is the limit between water and land. Like, no, because it changes and isn't fluid. So there's the Pisces thing, right? And Saturn does navigate that, because he is the boundary marker, right? So as we get farther into Pisces, so like next year and the year after, that's when things are really going to start to shift and dissolve. And so from a Saturn and Pisces perspective, that gives us a chance to test the boundaries that have been constructed. And in some cases, I think we're going to see them like just dissolve. Um, and it's going to be both good and bad. Like, we're going to see dissolution of boundaries through incompetence. And I think that that's just like kind of on full display in the world. And over the last 5 years that he's been in his own signs, he's enacted a lot of pretty strict boundaries that we've all been having to like deal with, including like physical ones, like stay in this house and don't leave it. Or,
Yeah, don't
the
go within 6 feet of
non-physical.
another human being.
Right, exactly. Like, very physically defined boundaries. We're losing that, or maybe we've completely lost it. I hope, but there's still boundaries, and they're internal. And I think the Saturn in Pisces, the broader story is the constructs of the imaginal, and that's where Saturn's boundaries into structures and things like that are going to really show up. So it's like our mind boundaries, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word. It's not very poetic, but yeah, that's kind of where I've landed with what I think we're going to see with that. And then again, so this year I think we're going to see like pushing on that, and that's kind of on a world level. On a personal level, like you were saying, wherever Saturn is in your chart can be a point of restriction and limitation, but also structure and boundaries. And you lean into the structure-y part as opposed to the fear and the limitation part,
Yeah.
because we need boundaries. You need them. And in a sign like Pisces, where it's really easy to lose your boundaries, Saturn might be really useful for people there, where they're like, I actually need to like work more on this. So for you, it's your 10th house, which, it's your most public outward self. So yeah, you may need to focus for the next couple of years on like, self versus private, who you are in the world versus who you are in private, and all of that type of thing. For me, it's my 11th. So it's similar, but it's more about my community groups that I'm in. And just basically, I'm going to work on like enforcing good boundaries with my friends and with communities and groups and things like that, so that I'm not giving too much of myself to those things, or they're not, impinging too much on myself personally. I'll try also not to just like withdraw and go full hermit and isolate myself from those groups, because that's kind of also a thing that Saturn can do, right? Like, just total like restriction and kind of yeah,
Yeah,
draw all
that
that
hermit
back. Hmm.
hermit mode could be fun though.
Yeah, sometimes you
I
need to.
like it. I mean, I can do it too much. I lean too much into it.
Yeah, your moon is in the 12th, so that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm like, I need to get away from y'all.
Yeah, it's a hermit
Um
moon. Yeah.
like, one of the best things, I think one of the greatest feelings, this is why I used to smoke cigarettes. It's because they used to let me leave
Mm.
and go outside.
Hmm.
Like, so like being at a wedding and going outside, like, and everyone's dancing, and then you go outside to get fresh air and like kind of sit there and look up at the stars or whatever is like one of my
Hmm.
favorite things. And I never thought about that
Yeah.
until now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't need a cigarette to do that, but I get that
Right.
it's a really easy, like socially sanctioned
I
break
just
from
I
whatever
just
you're
chew
doing.
gum now, and
Hmm.
I just look crazier.
You and what does that say about where we're at in life too, right? Like going outside and just standing against a wall and staring off into the distance. If you don't have a phone in your hand,
Right.
people are like, if they realize that you don't have a phone, you're just kind of standing there and looking. People are like,
Right.
"Ew, look at that freak."
That person's zoned out. What are they doing? They're fucking space cadet. Yeah, I'm a total space cadet though. So that's cool. Um, okay, so we got a little off, but that was my fault. Just talking about me over here. Um, so in terms of the last couple months, yeah, I think that from I guess like everything I heard made me a lot more worried about the last couple months, and I almost feel like, oh yeah, that wasn't that bad.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I guess it depends on where you are.
Yeah, was there something in particular that made you worried? Like, was it the spy balloon stuff? Because yeah, you know what's funny is when that was happening, I mean, I don't follow the news super closely. I mean, I do because I need to, because I want to know how the astrology is going to map out. But I definitely don't ingest much on a daily basis. I kind of not quite schedule it, but I limit when I do it, and I kind of binge and then catch up on current events. And then I'm like, hey, I'm good. So I
Yeah.
was not aware of that happening in real time, but a lot of people are because, of course, it was all over social media. And I remember I went out to dinner with my family, and my dad and my sister were like, legit like kind of freaked out, and I was like, yo, what's happening? Some balloons? Okay, whatever. um so yeah, I guess I understand why, if you were following all of that, again, you want to talk about boundaries, have some boundaries from social media, because with Saturn into Pisces, it is all in your mind now, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a boundary is worth enforcing. But yeah, so the spy balloon stuff, like it's weird, right? And there's been a lot of weirdness, and I think it was a nice preview for Saturn and Pisces, because I think that things are getting weird. I for one am here for the weirdness, because I will take
Yeah.
bizarro, nobody knows what's happening, is it aliens type of stuff, versus crushing global pandemic lockdown restriction. I think we're all over
Yeah.
that. So
Virus
yeah.
narrative sucks.
Oh man, it's a yeah.
Yeah.
We've done that. We've done that. We can move on. So yeah, so I mean, I think what's coming is just, it's going to be interesting regardless. And I think it does seem to be very much centered in some way on, well, air. It's so age of air as well, as what all of this that I was thinking of is, it's
Mm.
not just Saturn and Pisces. This is the new Jupiter Saturn cycle in air signs for the next 200 years. Like it is 100% that. And we're just going to get more of that. So I mean, you briefly talk about, or I think I mentioned the alien narrative, right? I mean, I don't think the spy balloons were in any way alien at all, but there's some people taking it in that direction. And then there's been a lot of activity on the moon and about the moon lately that has me thinking, shit, they're really gearing up for the next, maybe it will even be in the next couple of years. It'll certainly be the prep phase though for establishing lunar bases. I think we're going to see, like, I think that, maybe by the end of, I think by this decade. So I think for maybe we'll give it 20 years. Pluto and Aquarius, I think we'll see moon bases, like, and it will be like a normal thing.
You don't
And
think
one of
there
the,
are already moon bases, or are
okay,
you
yes, I think there is all sorts of shit on
like
the moon
come
that
like maybe they'll
mhm,
reveal it, like kind of like the stealth
yeah,
bomber wasn't revealed for like 30 or till it was like
mm,
retired or something.
right. It would not surprise me. And I would be super into that. The other thing though that sucks with all of this air stuff is, I don't know if we'll ever find out the truth. And I think we all just have to be okay with the little kernels and nuggets of information that come out, and we kind of just construct our own narratives. And I just don't know if there is a truth to these things, because I think there's so many overlapping narratives, and how do you, like, what's the right one, you know?
So this is one
It,
of the reasons why I enjoy, and like you were saying a second ago, why I'm looking forward kind of to this Saturn and Pisces stuff, is because like the thing is that those boundaries between reality and the imaginal are actually, they are blurry,
hmm,
and it's going to highlight that reality more so than, like, I feel like it's going to make it, like, obviously, like, the way that plays out in the material is going to mirror more closely like that aspect of it, but I think to like a large extent that that is something that we've ignored as a society for a long time, and we've tried to like box these things into their little places, and
hmm,
that's just not going to happen anymore. And so like I'm welcoming that, you know what I mean? Like I
hmm.
want the imaginal to flow into this world, because really, like, I think that the imaginal is currently being colonized by shit ideas, you know.
Oh, it
And
has been for a long time.
yeah,
Maybe ever, but
maybe that's always
um,
the struggle, right? Maybe
yeah.
that is, like, I think that's a big part of empire magic, um is, that official story,
Hmm.
that narrative building of the official story does to some extent like concretize the imaginal, like those, whatever those things are, um like the archon that brings about, that attempt to dull that imagination, and like tyrannical powers, they're buddies.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, because if you believe it, it's true in a sense. For you, it is anyway, right?
Well, then the more
Um,
people that believe it,
yes,
the
and
more true it
then
gets.
and it manifests, and we can see that, obviously people like us who know about these things and who know about the power of manifestation. But even normies do, right? You talk about, go to the self-help section of a bookstore, and it's all about positive self-talk and manifesting your own reality, essentially, like, to boil it down. Well, what is that? I mean, that's magic, really. But
Yeah.
we phrase it in these terms that's digestible for people who are coming from like pretty hardcore materialism. So I am looking forward, same as you, to seeing the I guess the breakdown of materialism would be fantastic. Now, I don't know that we're going to go to some beautiful animist world. I mean, I'm there already, but hopefully on a
Well, because
broader scale, people realize that. But
breakdowns have to be integrated, and
yeah,
you can integrate them skillfully or you can integrate them unskillfully.
you
And
can have
so,
a psychotic break and never come back. And so the
yeah,
danger, I think, of Pisces, and maybe Saturn and Pisces too, is like, you just lose touch with reality, and not in a good way. And I think we've already seen the pretty serious fragmentation of people into disparate groups, aligned along beliefs often, right? And so in Pisces, all that gets churned up and mixed together, for good and bad, right? Like, you can take it in either direction. So I think we will see some more. I hope we'll see more mixing of people who wouldn't normally associate with one another. And again, for good and bad. So I
yeah.
just hope we can get over some of this like hardcore divisiveness of, us versus them type stuff. Pisces is good for getting rid of that to some extent, but Saturn does like boundaries, and that is a boundary. So
So do you want to use that as kind of a, let's do that as a segue to get into sort of some of the historical Saturn and Pisces stuff?
yeah, yeah, I've been doing some reading and research over the last few days, and I wanted to try to situate it right. So one of the couple of things, the aha moments I had actually just last night when I was chatting with some people about this, because they were wondering, well, how is this going to impact the U.S. in particular? And I don't know that the Neptune cycles affect. I mean, they affect everything, but other people have already commented on this. Is definitely not from me. The connection between Neptune and Saturn, and Neptune and Russia, that's very strong. Uranus is the planet to watch for the U.S., and that makes
Mm.
sense because Uranus is in um, Gemini, in the seventh house of the U.S., the Sibley chart, along with Mars. And so for just to speak to that briefly, because then I'll go back to Neptune. But Uranus is now, it's in Taurus, so is hanging out there. Saturn is no longer squaring it from Aquarius. So that kind of relieves a lot of the civil unrest stuff that came up from that square. And fun fact, I discovered this when I was again doing the research last night. So in like late 90s, they were in each other's signs from where they were just over the last couple of years. So in 2021 and 2, we had Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus, and so we got like a lot of civil unrest. The George Floyd thing was huge, and all of those types of things, and ongoing protests and things of that nature, and then all the civil unrest that came up about the pandemic and things like that. And if you go back to the late 90s, you get Saturn in Taurus and Uranus in Aquarius. So they were, in reversed signs. And there was like the WTO protest in 1999 was a big one. It was like one of the biggest political protests in certainly in Seattle's history, probably in the US history too. Yeah, so that was kind of an interesting connection sync thing that I found. I figured out yesterday. I wish I had discovered that 2 years ago because I would have seemed like an astrological genius, but that's okay. I've said it now. I've learned it now. But yeah, so Uranus goes into Gemini in 2025. So I think that's going to kick off a big new cycle for the US in particular. What it might mean, I'm not sure, but Uranus was in Gemini during the American Revolutionary War and during Abe Lincoln's presidency. So maybe we get some of that vibe. Like it does kind of seem like the US is going to need to be united somehow under a leader like that, and I don't know if that can even happen, but we'll see. So
yeah, some kind of shakeup.
It might almost be like a dictatorship, really. Like I don't know that it's going to be
and this might be something that we can get into more as we talk about Pluto and Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
My worry there is a sort of pendulum swing in the other direction as a response to what's been going on for the last 3 years or so.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing that.
Like a radical shift to the other side. And so like, I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say this. Dude, I am not on the political graph like at all, dude. I think that the only way to win that game is to not play. Like I do not ascribe myself like, there are some words I'll use sometimes, but it doesn't really describe me fully. So like anarchist, libertarian, those are only poor representations of how I kind of see myself. Really, I'm I don't even know what to call it, So like
yep.
When we talk about this stuff, I feel like, like some people probably think I'm conservative and other people think I'm liberal. And I'm like, well, I'm none of those things. I'm not on anyone's side because no one is on my side. So like the ant thing, like my constituency is the dead and the land. And like, so we need to get back with that. I don't know. I'm on a rant and on a tangent, but I am not cool with what's been happening the last 3 years, and I probably won't be cool with what's happening for the next 3 years if there is like this radical shift. Because Pluto and Aquarius, wasn't that going on during the terror and after the French Revolution?
Yeah,
the Reign of Terror?
Correct.
Yeah. And so yeah, I just don't,
Yeah, Pluto and Aquarius, again, we only get that preview so for this year, so May to June, and then the rest of the year it's back into Cap, and then next year, mostly in Aquarius, kind of goes back into Cap a bit. Basically, end of 2024, beginning of 2025 is Pluto and Aquarius proper, so that's what we get for the next 20 years. I think we will see the reorganization of communities, and that is a very, very like high level, generic kind of thing. But yeah, the way humans organize themselves on a both micro and macro level. And so if you think about the French Revolution and the American Revolution, which crossed over both of those periods, it was people like reorienting how they organize themselves from a government perspective, but also from like a family even perspective and how people live with each other. So again, good and bad. I think we need that. We seem to be at such a like it seems so cliched to be like, we're at a turning point. We're always at a turning point.
Yeah.
And to say, yeah, now it'll be different. No, it'll always be different at this
Now
thing.
the
So,
the turning point is
um,
now. It is the moment. It
yeah.
is the present
Hmm.
moment.
Yeah. So I see what you're saying, and I think the power that we need to get back is to maybe be given or to figure out the words to describe yourself. Because I've used those same words, anarchist, libertarian, and stuff, but words are so weaponized.
Yeah.
And as soon as you try to throw a term out there, there's going to be a force that's going to come in and try to
Co-opt
pervert
it.
and corrupt it and co-opt it to serve whatever other purposes out there.
I
So
think
how
the
do you
best one
opt
I
out
have
of
so
that?
far is anarchist.
Anarchist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Defund the archons.
I'll sign that petition. No, don't sign the petition because then you're on a list and we're all on
Yeah,
a list.
right.
I'm on
I
I'm
just
on
need
like
you all
10 other
guys
lists.
to put your names on this list. I just need to get
Yeah.
us all signed up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's just like disinfo 101, like
Yeah. Yeah. Here.
COINTEL 101, like
Yep.
don't sign up
Here.
on the list.
I know I made that mistake, let's just say a couple times over the
Yeah,
last
it
couple of years.
happens.
It does happen, yeah, but anyway, I'm small potatoes, so you can take actually heart in that, I think.
Yeah.
Most of the time you're so unimportant in the grand scheme of things. There's a lot of freedom in that, actually. You can just try to live your life. So,
Yeah, I think being being there's like that the become ungovernable meme.
hmm.
I think mine would be like become incomprehensible.
Hey, that fits in perfect with Pisces, so
Dude,
go
I
for
like
it.
get so weird that they can't see you. Like there's the gray manning
Yeah.
thing where it's like, yeah, fit
Hmm.
into the crowd by like being like everyone else. Like, well, no,
Hmm.
fuck that. It's like what is it like? It's like it's not like in the zombie movies where they smear zombie juice on them so that they can walk through the zombie horde. You know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sort of like just it's like be something that isn't even recognizable to radar. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. So that any quote normal person is going to look at you and go, I don't even know what that is, so I'm just going to keep walking. It's like, well,
Right.
a good analogy of people who do that sort of from an unhealthy point. So people who are like in the middle of a drug bender or like totally in psychotic breaks. And sadly, you see that a lot, especially now, like downtown. There's a lot of people because the homeless population has spiked here, and I'm sure in
Here
many other
too.
places. Yeah, and the rates of like opioid and other drug use is just off the charts.
There's
And so
a
you
there's
see
an
you
opium
see
war.
them, and there totally is, and you see those people who they're acting incomprehensible, and everyone just you just avoid them. No one is going to interact. So there's that version of it. So if you can do that in a healthy way, not by being hooked on drugs and living on the street.
Yeah, and I think the junkies and the freaks are the like the crown of creation. This is all kind of Saturn and Pisces stuff, right?
Yeah, I have a quick list that I was putting together just as like Saturn and Pisces through history. What do we get? So, okay, just as a really fast overview. So, drugs is on there for sure. Fun fact, an anesthetic was first used in 1846 to extract a tooth, which is ruled by Saturn. And so,
Mm.
Saturn, Pisces, boom, drugs. For teeth, new religious movements. So, the Methodists were started under it.
Oh,
Amazing Grace was
I
first
was a
used.
Methodist.
Were you really? Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Water stuff, obviously, but especially piracy on water and polluted water. The Exxon Valdez oil spill happened under that, sadly. And then hydrogen and bombs, like H bombs, but also just like hydrogen energy, and that has come up like huge in the last little while. Um, Including right in my backyard. Edmonton is like building the biggest hydrogen plant in at least in Canada, if not North America. And I'm kind of like, great, that's awesome. And then also, there was some like it's super tied into Russia. I'll get to that in a sec. Oh, but also, yeah, imaginal stuff. This is a fun one I liked. Pi. So the number pi 3.141592. They kind of declared the transcendentality of pi in a Saturn and Pisces transit.
That's
And so like
interesting too, because you talk about pirates. I had a dream like 2 nights ago
Mhm.
that I was a pirate captain, and that the government was sending agents to inspect some pies that I had on the ship.
Are you serious?
Yes, 100%.
Well, your last name is Sailor, so I would bet money on you having had some sort of seafaring past in past
Yeah,
lives.
right, right.
Um, yeah, right on. Yeah, the pirate stuff is more from like the 1700s. The transits through that century, like because of course that was the world, right? Like the seas were how we got around in a big
But
way.
how do we see that in a modern sense? Like, I think
Hmm.
that's some probably some internet
Yep. Well, it ties
stuff.
into the age of air. So yes, water, but also well, it makes me think of oh, have you read any William Gibson?
I actually haven't, sadly.
Yeah. So
You'd think
now
I would have based on my interests.
yeah, you would enjoy it. But yeah, so William, he's a fantastic sci-fi writer. Neuromancer is the one, I highly recommend everyone read because it's just
Like
I
classic
call it
cyberpunk.
yeah, I call it required reading for these times for sure. But I think it was him who was describing, I could be confusing my sci-fi now. I swear he had some sort, it was like liquid technology crossed with like computers, but it's like that interface of humans with technology. And so you get like squishy bags of mostly water, which are humans, right? And then interfacing that with computer technology. There's a ton of that in Gibson's work and others, obviously, of like, neural links and stuff in your mind and whatnot. Maybe that could be a Pisces thing in a way, sort of like linking
I
that
feel like
in with,
that's definitely also a Pluto
oh yeah, big time.
Aquarius thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They kind of blend together, like once I start looking at this, because they're happening at the same time. And
Yeah,
of
that
course, you
shift is
see the
really
layering.
interesting.
Mhm.
Right? Because it's almost like it's like Saturn moving through Aquarius has paved the way for Pluto to enter it.
Mhm.
Like you can't, or I have a hard time making those two separate events, right?
Well, and that's why there's been some people, it wasn't me, but like some other people who have said, maybe we won't actually notice Pluto and Aquarius as much, at least not right away, because it is more
It's
Saturn,
just a,
really.
yeah.
So it's like a different shift from like, okay, so the Capricorn is, Saturn's earth sign now moving into Saturn's air sign. There is a shift, but it's still Saturn. So it may feel familiar still for some time, I think. Yeah, but the Russia stuff, I mean, again, other astrologers, not me, have commented on the Russia connection to Saturn and Neptune. I did just put together a quick list when I was researching for this, and I mean, I am sure it goes farther back. I don't know my Russian history nearly well enough to comment on that, but so in 1809, so this is Saturn Neptune conjunctions so through history. So in 1809, it was in Sag, and we got the Grand Principality of Finland, which was the predecessor of modern Finland, and the Finns basically pledged allegiance to Alexander the First of Russia. And that has come up again with Finland about to join NATO or whatever, and that's like a big deal for Russia. And I think over here in North America, we kind of maybe don't get that as much. Like, why? Like, who cares? But like going back through history, you see it's a thing. Like Finland and Russia were like, quite allied. They're neighbors, right? So that it makes sense.
Well, I also don't
And
think that a lot of Americans realize that NATO was formed
mhm.
in direct opposition to Russia. Like,
Yes, it was. Yes, 100%. So yes, there's other issues going on with NATO for sure. And so that Grand Principality of Finland lasted until not the next, but the next Saturn Neptune, which was in 1917. There was one, that was 1809. Then there was one in 1882, which was in Taurus, and that was the end of the pogroms, I think they're called. This was like a series of ongoing attacks in the Russian Empire on Jews. It was like genocide, basically.
yeah.
But those officially ended, I guess, in 1882. So good. That was a good thing. But that directly concerns, right? Because it was all within the Russian Empire. Then 1917 was in Leo, and of course, well, okay, yeah, it was World War One, but it was also the Russian October Revolution, right? Like that was the end of the czars and the replacement of that with communism. And then in 1952 and 53 was in Libra. Stalin died. There was power struggles. Khrushchev took over. There were some uprisings in East Berlin that were quelled by the military. And then there was the Catalina affair, which is where Soviet planes were shot down, or they shot down, sorry, a Swedish military plane, which was conducting intelligence over the Baltic Sea. So that felt I included that because I was like, well, that sounds familiar.
I'm resisting
Um,
quoting Step Brothers right now, but continue.
Go ahead, quote it.
The Catalina fucking wine mixer.
Yeah, and then 1989 was the last Saturn Neptune, and that was in Capricorn. And Gorbachev became president, and the Berlin Wall fell, and it was like the beginning of the end of the USSR, right? And then a couple years later, we got the all of those new former Soviet nations kind of declaring their independence, and yeah, so that was Saturn Neptune as it related directly to Russia, and so. The next Saturn Neptune is at 0 degrees of Aries in 2026. So if we look at the last two, so the 1952, 3, and 89, 52 and 53 was in Libra, which is a sign of Saturn's exaltation. 89 was in Capricorn, the sign of Saturn's domicile. And in Aries, the one in 2026, that's a sign of Saturn's fall. So we got two really strong Saturns for the last one, which did coincide with like building up and then restructuring things on a fundamental level. And I don't know, I really can't predict what's going to happen in this one. It doesn't look good for government in general. Like
Sick.
it looks, yeah, I know, right? It looks like, yeah, that's for government. So maybe good for the people. I don't know, but yeah, so it's.
I like the Anthony Hopkins from Legends of the Fall. Have you seen it?
Like years ago. I don't remember.
It's a great quote where he says, "Screw the government."
Screw them. Screw the government.
But I need to have sound bites where I play these things. You know what I mean?
That shifts
Screw
the
'em.
tone of the podcast, though.
Yeah, it does definitely. You don't want to be shock jocks?
Not really. Although it'd be fun for like a day, but no.
It would be fun to do it. Yeah, just like one episode, like a Halloween episode.
Yeah, I can't guarantee I'm going to keep listening to your podcast if you turn into a shock jock.
Whoa! Holy wow!
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Interesting. That's interesting,
now,
especially since it's like it's hard to resist the language of Saturn's fall.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
I use it on purpose.
I'm optimistic about this stuff. Like I know a lot of people think that 2026 is like a World War III thing. I know people think that. I don't necessarily think that, but
so if it's going to happen, my money would be on 2025, actually. But
oh yeah.
Well, okay. So I don't think that World War happens the way that we've seen World War. I think even the word World War, what is that? Like, I just think we need different words. Kind of like what we were talking about, trying to describe ourselves politically. If we need new words or no words, I don't know. But from an astrological perspective, 2025 is a very volatile year. It is almost, but not quite as volatile as 2020. It'll be like the next peak in volatility for the 2020s, for that decade. So like 2020 is the top, then 2025. I would probably put 2023 in third spot there. So we are there now. So in a lot of volatility because of these, mainly because of these ingresses and stuff, right? Yeah. But yes, I mean, sure, it's going to be volatile, but it's, that doesn't necessarily mean war at all, right? So, like honestly, when I went back and I poured over those charts for World War I and II, they were coincided with Saturn, Pluto very strongly, but with other stuff too. And we were past that, like we did that, and that was the pandemic. So
yeah,
I mean, who knows? It could happen, and there are certainly people who already think we are in a war, or a world war, I should say.
Yeah, we talked about this before we hit record. I think that I've said it before, but I think the territory that's being contested is you and me and everyone's mind and their heart. I think that is the battleground of this World War III. Like World War III is within you. It's just a mind war. These are all slogans that we've come up with before on this show. Like, which sounds really scary, but actually it's I've used Bible verses to describe this before, and I'll do it again. You know what I mean? Like it's not like my favorite book, but like I just grew up with this shit. So the same person said that the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and violent men lay hold of it. And the kingdom of heaven is within you. Jesus purportedly said both of those things, right? And I think that those things are very relevant right now, because I think that the kingdom of heaven is within you, and I think that the power is within you. And this is exactly why the powers that be need you not to know that. They need you not to believe that, because their power is illusory, and it is granted by you. We all take part in that egregore. And I think that's going to change. And that's my optimism here, is that like they are grasping, because I do think that there's a consciousness shift happening, or whatever you want to call it, an awakening, a paradigm shift, a new aeon, whatever it is. Maybe we're just at the beginning of it, and maybe we won't live to see it. But I think that things are changing, and I think that's one of them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a really big God-shaped hole inside themselves. And I think that is the byproduct of materialism, which came directly from the Enlightenment era, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. So now more than ever is the time to reclaim that, or maybe recontextualize it. And then with Saturn in Pisces, Pisces is associated with sort of transcendentality and spirituality and religion and all of these things. With Neptune there, I think Neptune kind of clouds it, because people often, I think the meanings of Neptune and Pisces have been really overlapped, but that's probably because Neptune's been in Pisces for so long, for the last several decades. And yeah, so it's difficult to sort of parse out that. But yeah, needless to say, I think that people need to do something with that. And there's so many people are so cut off, because what does hardcore atheism give you? Is that true? Is that reality? Is that what humans should do and believe?
It literally killed me.
Nothing.
It literally killed me.
Yeah.
And anyone that wants to know more about that is free to email me at tim@nightbirdpodcast.com. And we'll go into it. Or you can listen to the past episodes.
I was just going to say, listen to this podcast. You'll figure it out. Yeah, you can tell those stories.
Yeah, it was, it's interesting, because it came to me as what felt like a form of liberation. And I think it was to some extent, because I was being liberated from how I was raised to imagine God or the spiritual or whatever it is. But it quickly became a little just as dogmatic as my religion was, right? So I think these were all like necessary periods in my life. And it's kind of a microcosm of what we might have to go through as a society, right? And that's just what it is, like the way I look at it is that my step into total atheist materialism was actually a step towards God. Like, as crazy as it might sound, because it's the same way that it's hard to describe this. My first hit of a hard drug was also a step towards this. Well, it's a step towards the place I'm at now, which is just like a new understanding and a new way of relating to these concepts. Like my small ideas of what God could be, or of what spirituality could be, or of what spirit could be, were totally supplanted by this sort of limitlessness. I was imposing the limits. Anyway, that's a tangent again. And yeah, I don't know where we were.
Drugs and God are pretty intimately connected. I mean,
yeah.
Think about it, like using substances to find God, to see God, and maybe vice versa. wait, using God to find substances? Actually, probably. Think about the divine inspiration that had to happen for humans to, number one, know to pick up this plant or this mushroom or whatever and eat it and not die, for starters, and to use it like ayahuasca. I don't have any personal experience or connection with, but when you learn that it is this concoction and it's different, probably every time, of all of these different plants and the combination and all of that. That's so, how do we figure that out, right? Like there's so many things where it just seems like, yeah. And sure, science and evolution can explain it. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that there was not also divine.
Well, there's a reason we call them spirits, like
Yep.
alcohol, we call spirits.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, dude, there's total validity to that. And like, it just happens to be my dharma that I like am cut off for the remainder of this incarnation. I had my fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cut off isn't even the right word. I'm really connected to that stream that I was looking for with those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to access that now whenever I want.
Yeah.
And so like I've said it before, but in that way, like drugs and alcohol are like my great teacher. Mm-hmm. Like my addiction and my alcoholism is my greatest teacher, and fear is my compass. These are things that I used to think were curses upon me, and like bars that were forming the prison that is this world. But I'm telling you, and I'm talking to the listener as well as you, that the perspective shift of being able to look at things that I think are my greatest downfall as a teacher and as a guide and as like to be grateful for those things has absolutely transformed my life. Because there's never going to not be like, I just think that this realm is a realm of those things. Like Saturn is real, archons are real. That's like what we're here to do. And so like if you're looking, if I'm looking for this utopia, well, the meaning of the word utopia is also nowhere. That's one translation of utopia, is no place.
Yep. I think utopia is a really dangerous concept.
Yeah. Let's start talking about cults. This is a good cult segue.
Yeah, just as dystopia and utopia are both terrifying. Both of them, right? So yeah, cults. So well, this one ties into drugs and God and Saturn and Neptune.
Totally.
So, in 1989, there was a couple pretty intense cult happenings, which would have coincided with that Saturn and Neptune, which was in Capricorn at the time. The first one was they were Ugandan, and it was I'm not going to pronounce their name correctly, but Credonia Morinde and Joseph Kibwetri. Sorry, totally pronounced that wrong. But anyway, they founded the movement for the restoration of the Ten Commandments in southwestern Uganda. They were like strictly following the Ten Commandments to the point of not speaking. They were claiming to have visions of, the Virgin Mary and St. Joseph and Jesus Christ. And they, killed a bunch of people, their followers and stuff. And then
this is during what transit?
Saturn, Neptune, and Capricorn, 1989. Okay. Yeah. So not Saturn, Pisces, but Saturn, Neptune. And the end of the Saturn, Pisces transit that just started is him uniting with Neptune, which will be at the very, very beginning of Aries. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe coming up, is the Saturn, Neptune thing. And then also in 1989, so this one's nuts. Adolfo Constanzo. So he was.
This one is nuts.
You know him. Yeah. Yes. So Los Narcos Satánicos. So it was the narco Satanists in Cuba. Yeah. So he was like a drug dealer, cult leader, gang leader guy.
They were doing Palo Mayombe, right?
Yeah. He got into magic and stuff like that, like early, and he used it to sort of charm his way out of police encounters and things like that and getting busted. And he ended up attracting a following, and they kidnap people and sacrifice them. Like, so they were literally kidnapping people for human sacrifices. And he claimed that that's why he was able to like escape,
they were doing magic for the cartels, right? Like
ended badly, as you can expect. Like it ended in a police shootout, and Adolfo got shot and killed, and then that just kind of like so it ended that. But yeah, I mean, that's a very literal like Saturn Neptune, like, um, yeah, like all of that's pretty intense. So let's hope that we don't, get that sort of thing going on. But there is going to be this, like, we've got this reorganization of society, social communities, and things like that. We've got this, need and want for spirituality of any kind or a better one, and people like filling in these gaps that have been kind of like crushed out of them from like all this time living under materialism. And yeah, like, so there's going to be some interesting things that may come out of that. Gangs was on my list of like possible issues over the next little while. Of course, there's lots of gang stuff going on all the time, but yeah, just to like, I think we'll see some new iterations of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anytime that, right, and you said this, but like anytime that the way people are choosing to relate to spirit is shifting, that there's like there's the possibility of cults forming. Like it's just
Yeah.
a reality, right? People are seeking, and
Mhm.
there are going to be people that kind of take advantage of this. And so like I actually don't have a problem with cults in general.
No.
As crazy as this sounds, but like a high control environment is a different thing, right? Because a cult just
Mhm.
means like a following of it can be like of a certain god or a certain person. Like I'm less cool with that. Like I think we're not going to be. I think that the way to find this is no longer through the guru. For a while, personally, that's just my take. Like, and that doesn't mean not to have teachers,
Mhm.
but I just don't think it's centralized. Like we're entering decentralization territory.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's my responsibility to gather all these nuggets. Oh, I hit the microphone. To gather all these nuggets of truth from all these different areas. And it's my responsibility to kind of take those together and do what I will with them. So, in a sense, like being my own guru, which is scary because it's a lot of responsibility. People don't
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, like Saturn Neptune in 89 was in Capricorn. So that is like peak centralization of power and things like that. And the one we're coming into is it's all through Pisces up until the very last, well, not the very last moment. And this is all a process, but we get it coming together in Pisces, which is like the opposite of centralization, and then into Aries, and it's almost like I don't know, that conjunction happening right at zero Aries seems like well, yeah, if there were gurus and stuff, and I could see gurus coming up as Saturn and Pisces, it kind of feels like
Oh,
all
there
sort
will
of that.
definitely be gurus.
But they're all gonna like fall like quickly
Yeah.
when that shift happens in Aries. And then it's like, then the Aries is individualism, right? In a big way. So I mean, if we do see people falling into these groups over the next couple years, following whoever, charismatic leaders of whatever kinds, I think that shift in 2026 into Aries is going to be like killing your teachers. Hopefully not literally, but hey,
Yeah. If you meet
yeah,
the
like,
Buddha on the road, kill him, sort of thing.
yeah, who knows, right? But it is quite a thing to go through. To really admire someone to the point of like holding them up on a pedestal and then seeing through that and kind of either kicking the pedestal over or just walking away. And it's a growth. If you never go beyond, if you never have that experience of like, this person was my teacher and now they're not, um, it can be very like, it can be uncomfortable
It's
because
fantastic.
it can be too. Yeah. It can be very liberating, especially if the way that relationship has gone has been has become or is too oppressive, right? Like if it's just, you can never contradict them. They are right. They are supreme authority. Like that's never going to work for anyone. Yeah. So.
And I've had them come back. Like sometimes
Mhm.
I had to go do my own thing and to realize like, oh, this person was like really valuable to me. And I like, there's what they offered was great. And like,
Mhm.
but I wasn't able to really like, because it's a relationship, right? So like it's not all on the teacher. Like it's about how I approach the
Mhm.
teacher and how I treat the teacher. So like I can be in a cult of personality just by my own by what I'm doing, by how I'm doing it. Even if that, like, you know what I mean? Like, that person doesn't have to be a cult leader for me to be in a cult.
Yeah.
Like, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
if
No,
I'm
it does.
worshiping someone,
Mhm.
like, I need to ask myself some questions.
Yeah. Well, and on a broader scale, I'm curious to know what this does to celebrity culture, because you want to talk about cults of personalities, that's what celebrity worship is.
Yeah, I have
And
big ideas about that.
oh yeah, let's hear them.
Yeah, I think that when you stop venerating your ancestors and the dead, that you start venerating the living,
Mm,
because the way that that comes about is through falling out of relation with the dead. So, like, not thinking they're even like around.
materialism. They
Yeah,
don't exist
materialism.
because they're gone. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And it makes people easier to control because, okay, look at the past, look at recent times. So if you worship celebrities right now, you're in a really dangerous place because they're all bought and paid for and will just say whatever their funders and their benefactors want them to say. And
Quick and
so
effective.
by venerating living people, I put myself in a very, I mean, besides, like, I mean, obviously there are certain people that are like holy, right? But like, they're not, they're
They're not
usually,
Kardashians.
yeah, they're usually not celebrities, right?
Yeah.
They're they're kind of off in the forest or something. And so, yeah, so like this veneration of celebrities and this celebrity worship is actually like, I hate to use this phrase, but it's like a false idol thing where like it puts me in a very controllable position. It's leverage. It can be leveraged against me very easily. Like, look at the fucking Epstein flight logs and look at the people on that. And I guarantee you there's a couple people on there that everyone like likes.
Mhm.
Um and it's a bummer, but it also revealed to me like, oh yeah, I remember now that I can't, like, I don't know these people. Like, you don't know them. And social media blurs those lines too. Like,
Oh yeah.
this is a person with a publicist, like, that has a marketing campaign that dictates who they are to the public. And the success of that marketing campaign dictates their celebrity, right? So, like, and then also their celebrity is dictated by a lot of inside baseball stuff, right? That we just don't know.
Mhm.
Um, what they're willing to do or say or whatever. Yeah, so that's a whole tangent, but like, yeah, that's my take on it. Is that it's actually used against people, and it's like, so if I, but like, my role models are fucking dead. You know what I mean? So like, they're beyond that. So like, a good example is okay, this is just coming to me right now, and I don't know why, but like, the dead can't be further corrupted. They can only be for like elevated. Which I don't know if that's true, but it just came into my mind and it's ringing true to me. So, like, for instance, there's a lot of people that died in 2016
I
that were
remember that.
celebrities,
Yeah, and
right?
everyone was mourning and being like, "This is the worst year." It's when David Bowie died and stuff. I think that
David
too,
Bowie,
right? Yeah.
Prince, Lemmy,
Right.
all these artists.
Hmm.
And to me, those people were like, the dead go before us. The dead go before us to prepare a place for us. They can do things for us that living people can't do. They're able to be present for us in a way that living people aren't, like, and living people are able to be present in a great way. These aren't like good and bad, right and wrong things. It's not a dichotomy, it's just different. So like, dead people can be there for me in a different way. Like, their power is dispersed to the collective. So David Bowie is a really good example for this. I personally believe that David Bowie is a mighty dead. He's a saint. um he has visited me in dreams. He has, like, shown up to me in synchronicities. He appears in the strangest ways. Like, videos will surface of him. Like, I shared this around at one point in the pandemic, but there's like, he voiced this character in a game called Omicron. and he's giving this dire warning to the citizens of Omicron. And it was like right when the Omicron variant was going around or whatever that bullshit is. And he was saying, citizens of Omicron, your corrupt governments are trying to control you, like break free. And this clip from this video game kind of resurfaced at that time.
Sure, yeah.
And so this is how the dead operate. They can speak to us in these ways that are not so much explicit, but kind of through the subconscious. Anyway,
You're making me think about.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say saints, ancestors.
Yeah.
These are these are my fucking my role models.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anyone has to do that, but like it's been nice for me. But go ahead.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. Yeah, that reminded me of board games I was thinking about earlier today, and about the like what is a board game? Okay, so on the one hand they're super nerdy. Just go with me on this. So think about the like most popular board games, and if you don't know anything about it, that's fine. But like Monopoly. Okay, so what is that? That's like capitalism, right? So that's just like banding together to play capitalism with each other. Also Risk. So think about Risk. That's world domination, that's colonization and stuff. And just tying it into like geopolitical stuff. How do you win Risk? Well, you have to take over like Asia, basically, right? Asia and Europe, or like Asia and the South Pacific. Like it's that region, right? If you own that, you're good. Like you take
or
over.
you base yourself in Australia and amass forces,
right,
and then spread out from there.
Yeah, because it's an island, it's hard to get to, right? And so like look at what's going on in the world. Like where is the US focusing a lot of their military power? It's like in the South China Sea and Philippines and like that area sort of just north of Australia. Yeah, so I was also thinking there's this board game. It was like not as popular because it's newer, so it just hasn't had as much time. But I remember playing it. It's called Pandemic, and it came out before the pandemic, and it was a cooperative game where you're supposed to, there's a pandemic and you have to work with the other players. So there is no winners or losers. You're just trying to like work with the rest of the people there to like, whatever, get over the pandemic. But I remember playing it, and I was really good at it actually, as being like, because I have project manager tendencies, and that's the kind of game, even though it's cooperative, it really helps if one person's there. It's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna
totally.
And so that was really popular a few years before the actual pandemic, right? And so I was thinking about just board games and like these little things that bubble up in our modern society that are like hallmarks of whatever bigger cycles and structures that are going on there. This is really not a coherent like thesis in any means. It's just something that kind of popped into my head earlier today, and I was like, what's up with that, man? What's up with this board game? So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, are they rituals?
They're very ritualized. Any kind of game. I mean, tarot is a game, right? Or is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm gonna like
actually
piss everyone off now.
No, there's actually like some really fertile ground in that. And I think I talked about this with where did I talk about this with? It may have gotten cut. Anyway, it's an episode that's going to happen in the future.
Okay. Well, fortune telling, right? Like fortune telling with cards is like kind of for entertainment and not, but
right. And there was also that game called it was like a cell phone app that was like
the
Plague Inc. maybe, or it was like a pandemic game. Plague Inc.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the one where you say what you want to experience and then it gives you GPS coordinates and you drive to them.
Oh, Randonauts.
Yeah.
I have crazy stories from that. You can listen to the episode with Nick Hinton.
I remember listening to that one. Yeah.
He worked on that. Yeah, that was wild too. Yeah, all these things kind of seep into the collective consciousness, right? Like the games that we play are important, and that's why I'm like really, it freaks me out, like the Call of Duty stuff.
Yeah, well, it's
I used to play a
programming
lot
too.
of Call of Duty, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, it's
it's
programming you to be
programming
able to
you.
shoot someone.
Well, like the kids, and I say kids, I mean they were young adults, right? But flying drones and stuff. Well, if you're good at those like flight sim games or like shooter flight sim, whatever, I don't even know because I don't play them, but like you're probably going to be a pretty good drone
Oh, all
pilot.
that shit has military funding.
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's like these games, they're not just innocuous little pastimes. They're so well weaponized for lack of a better word. They're gamified to the point where yeah, they're gaming your nervous system. I have to be really careful because I get so addicted to certain types of games. Anything with like a really cleanly built like achievement system hits so many checkboxes
Oh
for
yeah,
me
totally.
personally. Like I lost a year of my life playing WoW because it was all based on achievements.
Hell yeah.
And then with all the other, group stuff. Anyway, so yeah, I'm glad I had that experience because it taught me a lot. And it taught me, for starters, that I will never get that invested in a game ever again because it will tear apart your life. And it's so ridiculous and it seems kind of cheesy and silly. But yeah, no, like you can literally destroy relationships because all you're doing is living in a game, right? So
Well, games nowadays are designed to do that. They like are
yeah,
designed to push those dopamine centers, just like in the same way that social media does,
even
in the
fucking
same way that a
Duolingo.
drug
Okay.
does. Oh yeah.
So Duolingo is gamifying like learning languages, right? And so I downloaded it. I had played it a little bit, played it, right? I'm playing to learn a language. I had it a few years ago and deleted it, and then I got it again because I wanted to kind of re-up my French. And it is kind of good for that, but they number one, they gamify it in a way where they're trying to get you to sign up for the monthly subscription so
Yeah.
that you don't encounter all the roadblocks that that they have to put in because you just keep playing for an hour. No, we have to try to,
It's the
you have to
worst.
pay for that. Yeah, yeah. And I purposefully, a big thing in Duolingo is like, don't keep your streak going, practice every day, or else, oh no, you lose your streak. Well, who gives a shit if you lose your streak because you got busy for a week, right? But
Yeah.
it hits that sort of like, oh no, I'm going to lose something here and I better log in. And I caught myself being like, oh, I better do Duolingo, even though I like didn't really want to that day. So I
Yeah.
purposefully turned off push notifications, which was my first mistake that I even enabled them. And then I
Yeah.
was just like, nope, if I lose my stupid streak on Duolingo, it doesn't matter. But I also super get why people are like into that. Like, I don't even know how many days my husband has had his Spanish streak. It's something crazy, like hundreds, like
Does it actually help you
500
learn
days.
the language?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
So I've been doing okay with the French, but I took 6 years of French in school. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just remembering what I had already learned. I don't think you could just learn maybe enough to learn some very basic phrases to travel, which I think is its purpose, but you're going to need to do something more formal if you need to like actually master a language.
Yeah.
Anyway, that I don't even.
It's too bad they don't have Aramaic on that. I would do that.
I should check. I don't know. They've got a lot of crazy things. I mean, I did look up. Yeah, do they have ancient Greek on Duolingo? Probably not.
That'd be dope though.
Yeah, why can't you teach me how to translate ancient astrological texts? Come on.
Cool. So from there, where do we jump?
From Duolingo to, yeah. I mean, just looking at the astrology of the rest of the year. I mean, this isn't just about astrology.
Do you want to look forward now? I mean, we've kind of
we can look
been
forward.
doing that a little bit.
For sure. Like, so again, the March is intense. Like the third week of March, is, Pluto and Mars changing signs. So those will be pretty big. And then April, we get the first solar eclipse of the year, which is April 19th. It's at 29 Aries. So it's a shift from the Taurus Scorpio eclipses last year to there's one in Scorpio, one in Taurus, and then one in Libra and Aries this year. So they're shifting. I mean, eclipses, my standard eclipse warnings apply. Go listen to that episode if you haven't yet. They suck. Stay out of the light, do some cleansing, take it easy, do some prayers. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Praise Rahu.
Yeah, no. I don't do that.
I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that.
You be doing that. I do not be doing that. So
yeah, it's cool that we can experience both sides and then kind of come together on how it affects our lives.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So there's the solar eclipse in April and then lunar in May. at the very beginning. The May eclipse I have on my bingo card, sort of maybe a conclusion or at least another big development in the FTX story,
Oh,
just because
interesting.
that really came out in the eclipses in the fall, like near the end of 2022. Yeah, it was such an eclipse story. Holy cow. It was just like right on point. So we're getting the last eclipse in Scorpio. It's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, on May 5th. And so I was wondering, I think that might coincide. He might get sentenced or something. I don't know. If I had to guess, I would think something like that, probably.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll
And
get a look at that
then,
one.
yeah, for good news stories, May 16th, Jupiter goes into Taurus. And so I think that's cool. I mean, Jupiter has been going through Aries. He's kind of like rampaging through Aries really fast. I don't know that I personally haven't put my finger on any like one news story that really is like, yeah, yes, Jupiter and Aries. I think it's just, um, yeah, I'm really not sure actually, but Jupiter into Taurus, I think is
How do you
gonna,
feel about Jupiter and Aries as oh, it may be a more Mars Gemini thing, but what do you like think about that with conspiracy stuff?
yeah. So because we have Mars and Gemini, that's been a lot of the like war narrative talk and that type of all this espionage type stuff. The spy balloons, maybe that's tied into Jupiter and Aries, just only in the sense of like, um, blowing it out of proportion, maybe, or
Dude, I just think that that's just distraction stuff.
oh yeah, 100%.
Um, but my thing is like, what from? Like, I know it did happen at the same
Hmm.
time as the chemical spill in Ohio.
Yeah, but even that, and then that was like I remember people being like, ignore the spy balloons, there's this chemical spill. And it's like, ignore the chemical spill, there's I don't know, Hunter Biden laptop or whatever. I mean, all of
It's
that
psyops
is
on
at play.
psyops on psyops.
Seriously. It's just
It
noise and
really is.
distraction. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
So,
that personally, like, just being having your head in that is the point. Like, because I've kind
mhm,
of withdrawn from all that stuff,
same.
and it's been so nice.
Hell yeah.
It's been so good because I can live my life.
You can hear yourself think again and you're not
Yeah,
just like hearing all these other things
and
going
so
through
it's
your
interesting
brain.
because it's like reacting to people reacting to the thing
Oh my
is still reacting to the thing.
God. Yes, it is.
It's downstream from it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I can just step out of that stream and step into a different stream.
Hmm.
That easy.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I agree. And then, I mean, Jupiter through Aries, maybe it's just part of that.
I felt
Maybe
great
he's
since
actually, maybe he's mitigating Mars in a way by going through Mars's sign.
yeah.
He's like, Jupiter doesn't really have any particular affinity with Aries, but
He's like, I'm in your base.
yeah, well, he's kind of maybe if he's going to be a general, he's going to be like a noble general. So you've at least got like maybe they're, kind of keeping the worst things under wraps that we may get if,
What do you think about this? Okay, let's talk about. I want to right after I'm saying like I've had my head out of this stuff, I
Mhm.
do kind of want to look at some of the current events, like this January 6th
Oh, yeah.
stuff. Have you been paying attention to the footage that was released? So like
Very
basically
little.
they gave the footage just to Tucker Carlson.
Right, I did know that, and everyone was like, how could you just give it to Tucker?
And
Tucker.
that to me is also a psyop, right? Because it's
Yeah,
like, okay, you're only gonna like
it's like the
it's
same thing
really
with
hard not to get tangled up into the bullshit with this.
totally. And then the what was it, the Twitter files one,
Yeah.
which is like Elon just gave the Twitter files to what's that guy? My
To
gosh,
Matt
I can't remember his
Taibbi
name. Matt
and Glenn
Taibbi, yeah.
Greenwald.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was another person, a woman, I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like limited hangouts.
Mm. Yeah, which again is what even is that? Like
Yeah, that is also a psyop. But
it just makes me think of
one of my favorite memes I've seen recently is the Psyopticon. And it's just
oh
like
yeah.
all of the memes and Arnold is like running out of it, even though goddamn
Yeah.
Arnold, man, I'm so disappointed in that man. But anyway.
Same, hey. Like that's one talking like just to call back on our celebrity talk. The last 3 years have been fantastic for kicking over the pedestals that you may have had certain famous people and celebrities up on.
Yeah.
I was just becoming disappointed with someone I had previously admired was like a big mood for the last 3 years, right? Like,
Dude, it
oh,
really has
them
been.
too. Like, oh, okay, well, that sucks. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to watch your movies anymore, man, because I'm just going to be thinking about this bullshit you said on Twitter. But
Yeah, it's hard to watch any movies now for that reason.
yeah, and I mean, that was already starting earlier with like the Me Too stuff there. And I will admit, like, some of it has affected me. Like, I have a hard time watching certain people now because of things they've done, right? Like, I can't separate them from the character anymore, so I can't enjoy that movie, which whatever, it's just a movie.
It's actually been liberating.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's been good for me. Yeah, but where do we look at that astrologically? I want to know what you think about the and I know you don't really follow American stuff as closely. But yeah, so this idea of it's both of these things that you're talking about. Like this idea of okay, like we're going to put the truth out, but we're only going to put it through this source.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore it's going to be totally inaccessible for the half of you that we've indoctrinated to hate this source.
Yeah,
To put it pretty like that's a very charged way of putting it.
Right.
Like,
so it's like if you want to hear
sorry, we're all being indoctrinated, by the way. If you haven't, like, if you're just tuning in, like everybody is.
Yeah, no, I mean you said it right there. So with the January 6th stuff, giving it only to Tucker, okay, so you're basically guaranteeing, yeah, that the segment of people who already believed that that was one thing, like Trump trying to overthrow the government or whatever. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, that take. But those are the like they're never going to listen to Tucker. Like they're just not. They can't. They're like allergic to it, right? And so then you're just basically I think it's just increasing the echo chamber, right? Because then the people who were listening to Tucker and who were like January 6th wasn't that, it was this. Like it's just repeating what they already thought. So it's just kind of I think it's just reinforcing the division.
Yeah.
I think that's a hangover from all of the Saturn stuff we've been under. And I think it's definitely Mars and Gemini. So again, him finally getting out of that sign will help because that Mars and Gemini is like absolutely weaponized information, right? So
yeah,
so that I would kind of point to that one. So hopefully that will like alleviate somewhat. And the eclipse is happening in Mars signs this spring, like April and May. It's in Aries and then in Scorpio. So maybe that'll be like Mars, releasing the Mars stuff with a bang. We'll see. But yeah, then we get into like the eclipses in the fall are in Venus signs. So it's different. It's a very different vibe. It kind of, yeah. But yeah, that would be kind of what I would look at. I'm going to blame Mars and Gemini for that, for those two examples in particular anyway.
Yeah. And I can't resist the symbolism of Gemini's duality to like not only weaponized information, but weaponized information that is kind of causing these two distinct sides to form as reflections of one another.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Because I can't exist if I stand in direct opposition to something, then it defines my existence.
By reflection, yeah.
By reflection. I can't be who I am without it. If I'm standing, like this is the same idea as like to fight the empire is to become deranged by its madness. So I have to find another way to respond.
You have to make space for both within you.
Yes.
And that's going to be the big challenge for everyone. Saturn and Pisces may give us some chance to do that. Pisces is another double-bodied or mutable sign, right? Where it's the two halves. There aren't even two halves, right? But you hold all of it within you, and merge with all of it. So
the alchemical process.
Yeah, right. So go to the primordial sea and just kind of like goop it up for a while.
Well, it's important for me to see the capability to do anything that a human can do. That capability exists inside me by virtue of the fact that I'm human. So all the darkness that's been done in all of history, that capability exists within me. I'm not separate from it. But you know what the upshot to that is? All of the good stuff, all of the bright, noble deeds that have been done, all of the standing up to the great fear, all of all of the courage, that's in me too. But those both have to be there, or else I become some sort of like some like caricature, or I don't know if that's a good word, but
Automaton.
yeah, something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I become very I only exist in relation to that which I oppose. Anyway, so yeah, that's another place where I'm optimistic though, is like I'm hoping to see more of that.
Mm.
But like the more that happens, it's so interesting to see, because the more that opportunity presents itself, because I think like people have access to all this information, right? The more that opportunity presents itself, then like the powers respond in their way, and it's like really weird to see like how crazy it gets,
Hmm.
and just how weird it gets, right?
Yeah,
like
the weirdness is,
like
I lean into
shooting
the
down
weirdness
balloons
is
and
my,
saying there's aliens.
yeah, right? Like my message I think for 2023 is lean into the weirdness and just let it wash over you. Just accept
Yes,
it. Yeah, and let go the
let's get
anger.
weird.
Let's get
Yeah,
weird. Yeah.
anger and resentment are okay. Well, anger is going to happen, right?
Yeah, of course, it's natural and it should. And
Yeah,
it's not bad on its own. Anger is very useful sometimes. You
right.
should get angry, and there are actually this is another part of everything going on. There are certain things happening that we're being trained to not to override our natural anger about,
Yeah,
because someone or something is saying this is actually a good thing. There's no problem here.
right.
No, you shouldn't be angry about that. What are you, a bigot? And it's like, no. Sometimes, and just listen to yourself, ignore everything else. And if they're like, interrogate it and be like, wait, should I actually be angry about this? And like, go with it. You are the product of all of this years of evolutionary history. And this sounds very materialist. You are also the product of, you know, countless other years of spiritual evolution.
Yeah,
And so anger is a useful, valid human emotion.
right. And it's unavoidable.
When properly controlled, that's my caveat, of course. Mars out of control will burn down the house and everyone in it.
The way I see it is the same as I view pain and suffering. So pain is inevitable, but I don't have to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Suffering is optional. And so the suffering version of anger is resentment. And resentment will kill me. If
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't do so physically, it will do so spiritually. And so, but that's my choice whether I'm going to hold that.
Yeah.
Like the resentment is all a personal choice. So like the anger or the external things that occur, I don't really have so much control over. I mean, I had a little bit, right? But like I don't. In general, like those things are going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um like I could go sit in a cave, but even then, right? Some cave frog might take my cave biscuit. Um and whatever. But I have a choice of whether I'm going to hold on to that. And spiritually, it appears to me as a rock that I carry, or like a calcified, like it's actually appeared to me as like a flame that was frozen in place and had to be melted and like
Mm-hmm.
like transfigured kind
Yeah.
of into a
I,
fire.
th- I think a lot of these emotions, resentment and whatnot, these really negative emotions that we can let just stew and build within us, I think they actually do become things like cancer,
Yeah,
and
totally.
disease. And yeah, it takes years. And that's also why you can't just think away cancer if it shows. I mean, you can, like, you can literally use, magic and physical mundane medicines to get rid of it. But like, if your cancer has been the product of the last 5 decades of you feeling so like negatively, whatever way it is, like you're not going to undo that in 5 months.
I
Um,
have to get down to causes and conditions.
mhm.
I have to look at I think that and this is not an uncommon point of view from a spiritual perspective, that um the spiritual realities manifest in the physical, like, and not really the other way around, which is, it could be easy to see it that way, right? But yeah, disease is a manifestation of something that's been going on below the surface, and it's kind of coming up. So the cool part is that we have tools to do this.
We do, and the trick is to try to find those tools before you get sick, which
Yeah.
and it's so easy, and I fell into this too, to come off seeming really victim blamey when you talk about people basically creating their own diseases and stuff, right? And that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that, like, because we all have these things that, these habits and these practices, both spiritual and physical, that could eventually result in a cancer, and you're never going to know, like, if this will lead to it or not. But I can tell you, I mean, even if you don't get sick and die from something like that, holding on to all of those things is just, you're not going to have fun. You're not going to like enjoy life very much if all you're doing is thinking about these, this anger, this resentment, and all of these things, right? Like,
well, it's, yeah, and it can come off victim blaming, because victim blaming is like maybe the shadow version of the fact that you actually have full agency in this incarnation. You do.
And we're taught not to, though, right? We're taught that that cancer just happens randomly to anyone, and any person can get it. And of course, when you read obituaries, it's always like, he was the nicest guy, she was so wonderful. And like, it's often, so I've read obituaries of people I've known personally, and then also just those famous figures where it's like, they weren't actually, they were kind of a shit person. But you don't say that in obituary, and I understand why. And I'm not saying we should necessarily like shit talk the dead, but like, I can kind of shit talk the dead if the dead was an asshole. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, what a shame he died. Like, to be honest, sometimes I'm like, good. Like,
so part of elevating is looking at the truth of what happened, right? So like, I can't, just like if I go into the gym and if I'm not honest about where I am in my physical progression, like how much I'm able to lift, how many reps I'm able to do, if I'm not able to look honestly at that, then I'm not going to make any progress, because I'm not going to be doing the right stuff. This is a very physical example, but it applies in my experience to the elevation of ancestors. I have to be able to look at the things in my past that happened. So a lot of people are like against ancestor veneration, because they think that it's somehow being okay with like colonialism and slavery and all the terrible shit our ancestors did. But it's like, no, I have to be able to look that stuff in the eye in order that I can make progress with it. And so that's one of those things too that I think is like an effect of the way we tend to look at things nowadays, right? Like,
the ancestor thing is
cut that person out of your life.
Yeah, and I admit I have that tendency. Like, I can hold grudges, and if you wrong me, you're dead.
It's okay to cut whoever you want out of your life too. But
true.
It's a choice.
Yeah, the ancestor thing, it's interesting. I'm still very early in developing that, and I'm afraid to, quite frankly, because I knew this already, and then I had some readings from some people who confirmed my suspicions about one branch of my ancestry in particular that is very unwell, and I know is acting through me and my living relatives poorly, right, to like repeat these cycles and stuff. And I it feels like too much. Like, I'm gonna have to do some pretty, I'm gonna have to like set aside some time in my life to like actually deal with it, because if I'm not gonna do it, it's just gonna keep repeating. And I know I can help.
Something to do when your kids aren't so young, like,
that's the other thing. I was also told very starkly, don't do anything in my house, and I was like, okay, like, gotcha.
But what you can do in the meantime is work with the ones that aren't in that situation.
For sure. And I think we are just intuitively because she
and like, you're actually actively doing it by being better.
Right, being aware of the family patterns is half the battle. And this is one of my main messages with astrology, because you say all these things, you make all these predictions, and people are like, okay, so what do I do now, right? Like, how do I work with that? Knowing is half the battle. I think it really is. Even if it's just to get you to a level of, if and when the crazy shit happens, you can like accept it, because it wasn't like blindsiding you. Not to say that you will not be blindsided, because you will, but I don't know. Yeah, just even knowing and kind of accepting and facing your own mortality. And this is like conversations I feel like I've been having for the last 5 years. Yeah, talk about Saturn in his own signs, face your death and stuff. But it helps if you look at your mortality and accept it, and actually truly try to accept it. No one wants to die usually, but you know, it some more than others can be more okay.
I think
with
it's
it.
from that. I think it's from that William S. Burroughs Book of the Dead. He did like a Egyptian Book of the Dead. I want to say it's like a book, and then him reading it, they made
Sounds
into an
about right.
album.
I don't know the
Yeah.
beats very well. They bother me,
So
but yeah. Anyway,
the there's an idea that and it's on that The Road to the Western Lands is the album. It's like got some cool jazz, and then it has him talking.
Okay.
There's an idea that is expressed that I'm pretty sure is from the Book of the Dead, but it may not be verbatim from the Book of the Dead, right? But the idea is that for as long as one is facing their own death, that person is immortal. So if I'm able to face my death in that moment, I am immortal, because just by the fact that what I'm able to observe is, by the nature of observation, outside of me, or like it's not part of the core of me. So like this idea, I find in meditation a lot. You get to this point doing mindfulness meditation where I'm able to look at these emotions as a detached observer, and then I'm like, wait, who's experiencing the emotion then? If I'm able to look at it, then who's experiencing it? Well, it's like some outer part of me. And so like there's a core of me that isn't actually affected by the emotion and is able to just watch. And so it's the same with death. And so that's why like death meditation is a really cool practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't done a lot of it. I've done some of it, where you imagine like your bones and stuff or whatever.
Yeah, like rotting away, and yeah. I mean, it's metal as fuck too. So I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's I think what like early Christianity was doing too. Like hanging out in graveyards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know how we got there. Who cares?
Talking circles.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Do we want to go to 2023 bingo cards? We talked about it a little bit.
Let me get mine out. All right, here we go. Let's see. Bingo cards for 2023. So, oh yeah, I came up with this early in the year. COVID was caused by the Russians. We'll see.
Well, we're kind of having that with the Chinese right now.
Yeah.
So
well, now
it's gonna shift.
I was wondering if they were going to try to, and this was like almost a joke one, because so the fact that they're like, yes, it was a lab leak, and that now they're really pointing it at China. There's that, but I was like, ooh, it would just be so whatever. If they could somehow spin it and be like, oh, but there was actually Russian involvement with that Chinese lab, or so, So anyway, so that it's.
Yeah, I think the Eye of Sauron is turning to China.
Oh, for sure it is. Yeah. The other one was Biden dies. Just like, okay. Also, Hunter Biden commits suicide. I was wondering about those two. Anyway, Poland.
Has he said something about the Clintons? Oh shit!
I don't follow, but maybe. Yeah.
No,
don't if you have. Yeah.
It was a joke.
Poland gets bombed again. So I'm on all the war stuff now, right? And then and then smallpox outbreak and/or a Marburg outbreak. I think they've already been trying to push the Marburg one. Hopefully not. Like that was just like I wrote these like in January, so I'm already hoping that those are going to be like not not a thing. Someone else said this. This isn't on mine, but the Kardashians go broke, which just made me laugh. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna add that to the list. Um, human DNA found on Mars. Again, that was my husband's. I would addendum that to say human DNA found on the moon. But the thing is, if they do, they're going to be like, oh, it's from past lunar missions or something. So I don't know if it will really. I'm waiting though for them to drop the like blue beam shit, the oh, finding human civilization elsewhere in the solar system, ruins on the moon, ruins on Mars. Like I totally believe that that is real and exists. And I'm wondering if they're going to pull the trigger now or not. But like, I think we'll see that sometime in the next 20 years, in some way. I don't know if it's just going to be straight up where we'll be like, yeah, so guess what, guys? It looks like there was, we're a breakaway civilization from someone so that was on Mars. I don't know, that'd be rad, but
yeah, that's like I've talked about the CIA remote viewing Mars like millions of years ago.
Yeah.
There's like some very interesting stuff.
There's lots of stuff on it. Like there's too much for me to think. No, it's just a bunch of wax out there. Yeah, no. So we'll see where that goes. I mean, it's like watch Battlestar Galactica, everyone, if you haven't already, because I think that was really tapping into some stuff. Also, it's just like a really good show. And then this was more local to Canada, winter power outage, particularly in Quebec, but maybe not. So hopefully not, because that would suck. Those are just the few. I honestly wrote these, like I said, back in January, and then I haven't really revisited them. And I do think that after the next 2 weeks, even, like, I'll probably rewrite a whole different card. But yeah, how about you? You got any?
I was trying to think about this because I didn't like do the homework.
I think I dropped this on you like right before we started.
It's all good. So. Like, I might just be in a time of like, just let it come. I don't care what it is.
Like, yeah, that's the other thing. Making these predictions, whatever.
And I like to make predictions. You know what I mean? I do have. I have some predictions, and this is probably just like cheating because I already did this in the episode with Michael Simon and Sharif Clark, where we did like predictions for where magic is going. But I do still see like a lot of decentralization there, like smaller groups forming,
which is good, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
It's safer. It's safer, guys. Just
like tactical, like precision strike teams, like magical special forces.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and not to be too like military with it, but whatever. Yeah, I think that's like a return to form. I think I mentioned in our chat too, right? Like,
yeah, you did. Yeah. I think so too. Yeah. These giant cult. Yeah. Man, I always wanted to have a coven.
I know, me too.
I don't know if I could trust 12 other people if we're going to do the like classic.
That's a 13. Lot.
That's a lot. That's way too many. Yeah. I think that's like a Wicca thing too. I remember like, oh, you should have 13 members in your coven. I'm like, how the hell are you going to get 13?
No, I'm definitely like part of groups that have more than 13, but like, yeah, we are. Like,
honestly, I think 3 is a good number. Maybe that's a little small. 5. I like odd numbers. No, you know what? We probably should listen to Lynn McTaggart, and 8. 8 is probably like a nice solid
8 is nice.
Yeah.
And like, I think like groups and subgroups and like that stuff's cool. Let's see. What else do I think is going to happen in 2023? I'm not comfortable making any geopolitical predictions, I don't think, because it's been so crazy that I'm just like, whatever, dude.
I know I made those because it's like it's a habit of astrologers, especially when you're looking at mundane astrology, because everyone wants to have the hot takes and and if you can get something right, you look like a genius. But it's probably more instructive to just reflect back on it and compile your example. Well, I mean, that is literally how we developed astrology, was people just tracking this stuff for thousands of years and writing it down, remembering it.
We didn't even go into the earthquake stuff, earthquake weapons.
No, yeah, you think that was a weapon? You think that was directed?
Yeah.
Yeah, shit.
I personally
Wow.
think that it was okay. We're getting weird. What else do we ever do?
We just told people to
So
lean
like the
into it.
location of it is like
Yeah.
super interesting because it could fit some revelation stuff, and I do think that there is a group of people that wants to immanentize the eschaton by, and this is like a blue beam thing, that
Yeah.
wants to immanentize the eschaton by enacting the events of revelation, like ritually trying to bring it about. And I don't know if that's like trying to like, if that's trying to like literally jumpstart the apocalypse, like you jumpstart a car,
Mm.
or like or if it's more of like a psyop thing where they want people to think that's what's going on, or like if these people are actually like think they're doing the will of God
Mhm.
by bringing this stuff about. But it's like, yeah, I could definitely see some people like trying to release Abaddon from the abyss by like doing this earthquake there. It's weird. It's like right
Mhm.
between the two Antiochs,
Mhm.
or like right in the area of the two Antiochs,
Yeah.
which has a Cyprian connection too. And yeah, it's just interesting. Like, I don't know. It's like kind of a chicken or the egg thing too, right? Like do humans do these things to bring about changes in the landscape of spirit, or do spirits do these things to bring changes in the landscape of humans? I don't know. It's
Right.
kind of all a soup.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think there's definitely something weird about the earthquake thing. Um there were a lot of strange and shit. I don't know. Like I just get my news from either memes or from cryptic symbolism in my
Mhm.
dreams,
Yeah.
which is itself a meme. Um so yeah, I don't know. There was just some weird stuff going on beforehand. Like there was that big really interesting cloud formation that looked like a rose blooming in the sky over
Mm.
Turkey, over that spot. There was like some weird stuff on the weather radar that looked like
Okay.
spiraling.
Yeah, just normal clouds doing normal cloud things, right?
Right. And I do think there's weather stuff going on.
Oh, there's
So
100% weather stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We they it's not even like a conspiracy. Like there's weather technology.
Yeah.
It came out recently about all the stuff China does to try to manipulate the weather over China and whatnot. And like, do you think that they're the only ones doing that? Like, of course not. So yeah. Um,
Yeah, they do cloud seeding and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Um yeah, I don't know. Um we'll just have to see.
Yeah, we'll just see. Yeah, predictions are fun, but the other thing about making predictions, and I fell into this early, is just don't take them personally because, especially, I'm talking mostly to myself and other astrologers, because you'll make all these predictions and you may get nothing right, and it's easy to get down and be like, "Ugh, I don't know what I'm doing," but it's like so hard to predict this stuff. Like you can kind of see the broad shapes of things, and we've spent 2 hours talking about that and more if we can go back and listen to the other episodes, but
Yeah.
predicting like very specific events is almost a fool's game. And if you do manage to get one right, awesome, but I
I
don't
feel
think
like
that's
when people get one right, they start to get
well, it stokes your
a
ego,
big
and then
head
you're
about
like,
it. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And it can like make or break a career, I guess, right? But the problem is if you get one right, then people notice, they're gonna go, hey, I gotta follow this chick. She's got some stuff right. And then if you don't keep getting stuff right, there's so much pressure, and then that leads into like, you know, whatever. Lots of practices that I'd rather just
Yeah,
not
there's
go
a quote
down.
from A Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones books,
Oh yeah.
where the quote is like, prophecy is a sword without a handle.
Mm,
You can just as easily
hmm,
cut yourself.
hmm.
Um, like trying to hold it.
Right, and
Yeah.
it's not that useful, right? Like, what are you going to use that for? Almost. So it's
I
kind
mean,
of
a
like
lot of
when
the time, knowing the future actually causes you to enact it.
100%. Like, do you want to know when you die? Because Like, do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Because there's some astrological techniques, and I've been toying with the idea of learning them, but I don't think I'm going to. So yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't know if I
I
want to know.
I think yeah, I just want to learn how to flow with whatever happens as opposed to knowing what
Yeah,
happens and trying to respond to it.
yeah. Totally.
Yeah, being in that flow. So, regardless of what we do, I have to take a bathroom break.
You know what? I think I need to tap out here
Okay,
because
yeah, you have
yeah,
limited time, don't you?
yeah, I gotta get
Sweet.
going.
I
I
think
could
it's a
keep
good
going,
stopping
but
point anyway. We didn't go more about the
totally.
moon, but we always
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, there was a Korean mission there recently and some crazy pictures. Crazy pictures. Looks like there's a dome around it. I personally think it's just data processing and just all of the pictures of space stuff is heavily processed. So
yeah.
they look cool, but I'm kind of like, I don't know if you can really use that for anything. Um, there was a Canadian news that we're gonna send our first lunar rover to the moon to look for water on the far side of the moon. Okay, gee, I wonder why they're looking for that, for those
Mm,
bases that they're going to build, or are there? And then there was just a recent one, like there was an urgent need. There's apparently an urgent need to establish a moon time zone. And I was like,
what?
what? Like, why? That one is the biggest. I'm like, really
Whoa.
urgent? We urgently need a moon time zone? Okay, guys. There's so much there we don't have time to go into. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'll just
because
leave that with everyone to think about.
okay, sweet. That's great. Just as mysterious as the moon.
Yeah, don't stare at the moon too much. No, do. I love staring at the moon. But the thing is, the moon makes you crazy. Lunacy, right? So like
Yeah.
you gotta be careful, like working with the moon. It's
I one of the things that I didn't know at the time was happening, but I can look back and see it like being one of those like cracks in the dam
mm-hmm,
was when I was a bartender and full moon nights
mm-hmm.
were consistently nuts. Like
Yep.
something crazy would happen every time, or
Oh
they'd be
yeah.
super packed. Like,
Yeah.
and I wish I'd have known astrology then and could look at what sign the moons were in. You know what I mean? But like,
Mm.
it was
Yeah,
at
if it's
least
in
consistently
Scorpio, like
crazy.
prepare for fights probably and
Yeah,
like some arguments. Yeah.
stuff
If
like
it's in
that's really
Taurus,
interesting.
people are just probably gonna like get really horny, maybe. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, hell yeah! Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this stuff with me. It's always a blast when you come on. You
Oh,
know,
absolutely. It's so fun. I enjoy
awesome.
being the resident Nightbird astrologer.
Hell yeah! Well, you have a great rest of your day, and
Yeah, you too.
we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, for sure. Take care.
Oh wait, do you want to We always plug your stuff, but plug your
Oh,
stuff.
right. melpriestley.com or .ca will get you to where I am. Sign up for my newsletter. Got a big blog there. You can book a consult with me if you want as well, all on my site.
Awesome. Good stuff. I will put that in the show notes as well. So
Awesome.
you enjoy the rest of your Friday.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, take care.
Do you experience weird shit? Do your parents not like to tell their friends about what you do in the woods? Do you make more friends in a graveyard than you do at a party populated by living humans? Do you have interactions with beings that are not strictly considered human? Do other people look at you like you're crazy when you mention talking to trees in casual conversation? If you fist pumped or even just answered yes to any of these questions, you may be a nightbird. So let's sing together. If you'd like to come on the show and flap your gums with me, share your stories, or just talk about the malleable nature of reality for a while, then send me an email at tim@nightbirdpodcast.com. That's tim@nightbirdpodcast.com. I'd love to have you on the show. But until then, I gotta fly. But before I go, let me say this. Remember, you are never alone. I believe you.